So, a very warm welcome to our annual event of the Women in Finance Chair here at ESCP. It's a pleasure to see you all here and to welcome you to our discussion and networking evening. And nous avons aujourd'hui le grand plaisir d'accueillir Madame la députée Marie-Pierre Rixain, qui sera notre conférencière invitée ce soir. C'est un très grand honneur et une très grande joie de voir que vous avez accepté notre invitation. So now I will change to English again. So who is behind that chair or who is driving the chair, however you would like that. So you see here with me Almudena, Cañibano, Professor of Human Resource Management here at the Paris campus of ESCP. My name is Marion. I'm a professor of Human Resource Management and Intercultural Leadership at the Berlin campus of ESCP. And this shows that we have a European perspective on the topic of women in finance. So we would like to address all, let's say, local country-specific issues, but we would also like to make it an overall topic for all our activities. So let me very briefly thank all our partners, right? All our activities would not be possible without the support of our company sponsors. And you see the names here, so we have Amala Partners, we have Ardian, we have Aid Advisory, we have Lombard-Odier, we have Andra, we have Bourbon. And really, without you, without your support, without your steering activities, without your openness to our research, all of our activities would not be possible. So thank you very much for that. Yeah. So let me start with giving you an overview on our ongoing activities. So what are we doing here at the Women in Finance Chair? First of all, we create new knowledge. So we extend the knowledge base we have on female leadership, on female representation and women in finance with all our research activities. And we use these research activities to educate our students, right? So they benefit from the knowledge that we are creating. But they don't only have a passive role, they also have an active role. We will see that later, so we will have an award for the best bachelor and master thesis. So we have quite a lot of bachelor and master theses on the topic of women in finance. In addition to that, we have PhD theses written on the topic of women in finance. So all of our academic researchers help us to produce knowledge about the field and to advance it. But we are not only working on research. Of course, one of our main tasks is teaching, and we also use the knowledge that we create here for working with our students. Our students are working on case studies, and right now we have a big case study competition across Europe where students work on employer branding and to what extent are women in finance addressed and targeted by the employer branding activities. And of course, we also address very contemporary topics like the backlash, which we see in many countries at the moment. So this case study competition is something which raises awareness about women in finance and the representation of women in leadership positions. If I go one step further, of course, engaging is one of the major objectives we have with our Women in Finance, and what we are doing today, of course, dissemination of knowledge, listening to experts in the field is something which is very important to us because we also want to raise the awareness. There is still a lot to do for helping and for supporting the topic of women in finance. So this is our second objective, and the third one, we work a lot with the students. So we have organized a mentoring program for female students who are interested in working in finance. And by now we have already 150 pairs of mentors and mentees who work together, and where the mentors were able to help the mentees to develop more confidence, more knowledge about what it means to work in finance. In addition, we have a video series which explains what does it mean to work in finance. So a lot of activities on that side as well. And as we have a lot of finance experts in the room, we still need mentors, and we will talk about that a little bit later, right? So this is what the chair is doing in a nutshell, and now we go over to tell you a little bit about the research insights that we have gained during the first 2 years.
So we're going to talk to you about 3 key projects that we've conducted, amongst others, and we're going to bring one insight per each project. So let me start with a project we've conducted on students' perspectives and careers. So we're trying to identify what drives students to study finance or other specializations, and possible differences between our male and female students in terms of their perceptions and motivations. And for this, we've conducted a quantitative study that started last year. We had 400 ESCP students responding, and we plan to follow them throughout their studies and when they start their career. And we published the first insights of this study last year in LSE Business Review. We will be sharing the link of this study, but here are some key ideas. The first thing we looked at is, well, what are our students interested in? And when we look at what men tend to be interested in, you find things like financial investments, for example, or entrepreneurship, or politics, current events, video games, and all of these things are things that our male students are significantly more interested in, according to their answers to the survey. When we look at the women, the preferences change. So the women showed more interest in things like environmental sustainability, or music and performing arts, or history and events, or fashion and design. So you see here we start from different interests in terms of drivers for what they're going to do afterwards with their careers. But they all have the same career aspirations. Our students, male and female, equally want to become leaders, to achieve difficult goals, and to educate themselves to the highest levels. So we asked them as well, what may influence your thoughts around specializing in finance? And we looked at different elements. None of them had a significant difference, except for one: having experience in finance. So those who are already have some exposure to finance are more likely to want to continue in that direction. But then when we look at whether they have experience or not, it seems that male students tend to have a lot more experience than female students. So this brings us to our first insight for today, which is you need to provide early exposure opportunities. Offer them internship opportunities. Offer the women these opportunities with no experience needed, because it's having that experience that will drive them to pursue specializations in finance and might open the door to a career in this field for them.
Yeah, thank you very much. And now we come to the second research project that we have conducted, and it's about paternity leave as an HR policy. So we had a lot of discussions with our partner companies, and we realized that some of them were offering specific programs on paternity leave, so which go beyond the legal regulations. So we were interested, being professors of human resource management, how is that experienced? And we wanted to understand how paternity leave can influence the workplace, the social relations at the workplace, the culture at the workplace, and possibly also beyond, because we also talk about a change in the caregiving role, right? So what did we do? We conducted interviews with male managers, of course, with their partners, with HR, with top management, with colleagues, and wanted to find out what are the different perspectives on that. How is it perceived to have a specific program on paternity leave? So what could we see? There were quite a lot of changes, and maybe you're aware of the ideal worker norm, right? So usually the man is the breadwinner and the woman has more caring activities, and you have a culture of long working hours which doesn't allow caring activities only to a certain extent. And we saw that all of that was changed by paternity leave. As of a sudden, both males and females had caring responsibilities, and this changed the cultures, the norms in the organization. And it also changed the other HR practices. So the whole HR system changed, and we had differences in recruitment, different criteria for performance management. And we also had the perception that outside of the organization there were things happening. So as of a sudden there was a greater openness, right? And there were more males taking care of family issues than we had before. So overall, it's a positive feedback loop. This is how we call that. And what we saw is it does not work always, and it needs some more conditions. And one of the conditions which is very important is leadership support, right? So if top management supports that, it works. If you have role models who are higher up in the hierarchy, this helps, right? So, but the lesson learned that we would like to share with you is about how this practice is designed. So what it needs is, we cannot make it legally mandatory, but a culturally mandatory approach. So it's expected from the male managers, to go on paternity leave, and not only for a week here and there, but for a long duration, so that it's a meaningful leave for the person. In that case, we can expect all of these positive consequences that I was showing in the positive feedback loop, right? So, and the next project?
And the third project that we would like to tell you about is focusing on the experiences of women in finance. Here we want to understand what is the experience of working in finance to get to, in the end, understand why it is that so many women leave the profession and what are the barriers that they experience. We are conducting a qualitative study, so we have interviewed a lot of women. We're also asking them to do recorded diaries, so they share their day-to-day experiences with us, which is fascinating to listen to. And we're also doing focus groups, so invite them in groups so that they can share their experiences. And we're doing that in 5 countries, of course, including France. And the first insights that we'd like to share with you from this research is a paper we're working on that looks at how women have the double experience of feeling highly visible, and many of them describe this: I am the only woman at the table, I am the only woman in the picture, but at the same time they describe experiences of feeling invisible, so feeling unheard, feeling disregarded in terms of promotion, and these two experiences coexist for most of the people we interviewed. What makes a difference in that is, do they feel agency? Do they feel in control of to what extent they make themselves more or less visible? Are they able to play with the mix and ball of visibility? And we are developing a typology of these experiences. So some women actually feel they have absolutely no agency. They don't have any control over this. Sometimes they feel completely invisible, unseen, unheard, unrecognized. Others feel too visible because they are assigned work simply for being a woman, what we have called the token figure. Some women describe having a certain level of agency that we have called defensive agency, in the sense that kind of they are defending themselves against this experience or dealing with it, coping with it. And here we have two types. The silent achiever, who works with this invisibility, works under the lines, let's say, providing excellent work and doing her absolute best and having better performance than others. And those who really become visible by negotiating for themselves, and sometimes they describe, this is their own words, using the I'm a woman card. And then those who experience higher levels of agency show what we call transformative agency. And here we have, again, the feminist advocates who are highly visible, creating networks that will try to change things, mentoring others, but we also have invisible architects who try to make gender invisible in general by creating similar conditions for men and women. And what we're observing is that it's not that difficult on a daily basis, including to move from one category to another, because sometimes they feel highly empowered, and then just certain experiences at work, particularly in feeling unrecognized, can bring them back to feeling really out of control, or the other way around. If they are supported, then they can develop this transformative agency and drive change. So our third insight for you today is you need to support women in developing this agency to deal in their own terms with how visible and invisible they would like to be. And now we would like to turn to our keynote speaker. And for that, I'm going to be switching to French. So for those who prefer to continue in English, I invite you to use the translating devices that you received upon arrival. Donc c'est avec un immense plaisir que nous accueillons aujourd'hui Madame la députée Marie-Pierre Rixain. Son engagement constant en faveur de l'égalité économique et professionnelle entre les hommes et les femmes l'a érigée en l'une des personnalités les plus influentes et les plus efficaces dans la promotion de l'égalité en France. Députée de la 4e circonscription de l'Essonne, ancienne présidente de la délégation aux droits des femmes et à l'égalité des chances entre les hommes et les femmes de l'Assemblée nationale entre 2017 et 2022, Madame Rixain est l'autrice et rapporteure de la loi du 24 décembre 2021 visant à accélérer l'égalité économique et professionnelle. Marie-Pierre Rixain est diplômée de l'Institut d'études politiques de Toulouse et du CELSA. Elle est également titulaire d'un DESS de vie parlementaire de Paris 2. Élue pour la première fois députée en juin 2017, réélue en 2022, puis encore en 2024, elle poursuit avec détermination son engagement en faveur d'une société plus inclusive et plus équitable. Par son action législative et son leadership, Madame la députée Rixain incarne la conviction que l'égalité entre les hommes et les femmes constitue non seulement un impératif moral, mais aussi un levier de performance économique et sociale. C'est précisément cet esprit que partage la chaire Femmes en Finance, dont la mission est de promouvoir la diversité, la mixité et l'accès des femmes aux postes de responsabilité dans le secteur financier. Sa présence parmi nous aujourd'hui est donc particulièrement significative. Elle nous rappelle que les progrès durables naissent de la rencontre entre la réflexion académique, l'engagement politique et l'action concrète des organisations. Nous sommes honorés de lui donner la parole pour partager sa vision et son expérience inspirante.
votre invitation. Bravo pour d'initier à la fois cette chaire, de la soutenir. Merci également à vos supports, à vos entreprises qui vous soutiennent, sans lesquelles nous n'avons pas compris que les actions pertinentes et ô combien nécessaires actuellement ne pourraient pas être menées. Donc merci à toutes et à tous. Je souhaiterais ouvrir cette intervention par quelques lignes du livre que je suis en train de lire. Rien de très original, c'est le dernier prix Goncourt, La maison vide de Laurent Mauvigny. Mais tout posséder pour une femme, surtout pour une femme aussi jeune, au début du XXe siècle, c'est ne rien posséder du tout. Celui qui possède tout, c'est Jules. En les mariant, on a veillé à ce que les biens de Marie-Anneltine et ceux de Jules se diluent l'un dans l'autre. La fortune possible de la femme peut s'incarner dans les décisions et les forces de l'homme, seul capable de faire bon usage de tant de perspectives de dépenses, car personne ne serait assez idiot pour laisser à une femme le loisir de jeter par les fenêtres tout le bien amassé si laborieusement par des générations d'hommes. Firmin, lui, en tout cas, n'aurait jamais laissé s'organiser une telle débâcle. Que nous dit ce passage? Ce passage nous dit que le lien entre les femmes et l'argent, que la place des femmes dans le monde économique, que les droits économiques des femmes, aujourd'hui, en 2025, sont le fruit d'une histoire. L'histoire de nos familles et évidemment d'une histoire collective. C'est celle également d'une histoire juridique. Vous rappelez ici, bien évidemment, la force du code napoléonien qui alors a fait des femmes des mineurs également sur le plan économique et qui va commencer par une longue marche de remise en question de ce code napoléonien à travers notamment une loi que nous célébrons cette année, la loi de 1965 qui, je vous le rappelle, permet aux femmes notamment d'ouvrir un compte en banque et de pouvoir travailler sans l'autorisation de leur mari. Et pourtant, 60 ans plus tard, nous sommes, je le crois vraiment, c'est ce que je vais essayer de vous présenter, à l'aube d'une transformation majeure. Une transformation qui va redessiner, qui peut redessiner la carte du pouvoir économique. Nous faisons face d'abord à un basculement structurel. D'ici à 2030, dans les pays occidentaux, plus de 34 milliards de dollars d'actifs financiers vont changer de main. Probablement une part d'environ 40% ira aux femmes, par héritage, longévité, montée en qualification, ascension dans les entreprises. Parallèlement, un article récent dans le Financial Times rappelait que les femmes contrôlent 32 000 milliards de dollars de dépenses mondiales. Selon une étude de Nielsen IQ, dans les prochaines années, les femmes contrôleront 75% des dépenses discrétionnaires. Un pouvoir économique équivalent au PIB cumulé de la Chine et de l'Union européenne il y a une décennie. Évidemment, ce n'est pas un détail sociologique, c'est un changement de matrice. Pour autant, un paradoxe persiste. Car si les montants augmentent, l'inégalité demeure. Le gender wealth gap reste bien. 34 centimes de richesse pour les femmes, pour $1 masculin aux États-Unis, 42% d'écart de patrimoine au Royaume-Uni pour les individus de 64 ans. En France, les femmes ont un réflexe d'épargne supérieur à celui des hommes. Un sondage IFOP de 2024 indique que 80% des femmes interrogées déclarent épargner et 75% le font dès que cela est possible pour elles, contre 72% pour les hommes qui le font à 68% quand ils le peuvent. Dans le même temps, 11% des femmes investissent en bourse, soit 2 fois moins que les hommes, qui eux investissent à hauteur de 24%. Raison investie par l'étude, l'aversion au risque. L'aversion au risque serait donc une caractéristique déterminante quand il s'agit de définir le rapport des femmes à l'argent. 68% des femmes étant tout à fait d'accord avec l'idée de ne pas souhaiter associer l'argent au risque, contre 44% respectivement pour les hommes. Une étude de 2022 de la Banque mondiale portant sur 16 marchés suggère que si les femmes investissaient dans la même mesure que les hommes dans l'épargne financière, près de 3200 milliards de dollars de capitaux pourraient être injectés dans l'économie à l'échelle mondiale. Et notons les 6 000 milliards de dollars de gains économiques mondiaux qui pourraient être obtenus si les femmes créaient et développaient de nouvelles entreprises au même rythme que les hommes. Le manque d'investissement des femmes est donc, je vous invite à faire la recherche sur Google, vous tapez femmes et argent, femmes et investissement, vous allez tomber sur ce texte. Le manque d'investissement des femmes serait donc analysé comme une conséquence de la prétendue aversion au risque pour les uns ou supplément de prudence pour les autres. La question des risques encourus dans les sociétés contemporaines a retenu l'attention des sociologues. Nous en avons d'ailleurs traité à l'Assemblée nationale ensemble, mais aussi des historiens, des psychologues, des philosophes au cours des 30 dernières années. Et je crois précisément que cet enjeu est aussi déterminant pour l'égalité économique entre les femmes et les hommes que pour notre économie. Nous devons investir plus précisément les circonstances environnementales de la prise de décision de l'investissement, tant à titre personnel que professionnel, et déconstruire la question du risque inhérent aux activités financières. Parce que la notion de risque, vous l'avez compris, est genrée. Pourquoi ? Parce que les femmes dépourvues de droits, de considération comme sujet économique, se sont construites elles-mêmes comme vulnérables, précaires sur le plan économique. Rémunérées à la tâche lorsque les hommes étaient rémunérés à la journée, rémunérées à la semaine lorsque les hommes étaient rémunérés mensuellement. 26,7% des femmes aujourd'hui en France occupent un travail à temps partiel, contre 7,9% des femmes. 22% d'inégalité de revenus, 30% au moment de la retraite. Par peur de manquer, les femmes épargnent. Elles investissent pour se mettre à l'abri. Le risque n'est pas féminin, c'est la culture du risque, évidemment, qui a été genrée. La culture financière reste masculine et l'argent des femmes reste pour l'instant encore un argent qui est sous-optimisé. Au fond, la question qui se pose n'est pas est-ce qu'un jour les femmes auront-elles plus d'argent, mais auront-elles les conditions pour transformer cet argent en autonomie, et c'est bien le sujet que vous allez présenter ce soir. Or, certains nombres de blocages constitutifs de notre organisation contraint encore la marge de manœuvre économique des femmes et entraînent une cascade de conséquences qui bien souvent entravent le développement de leur carrière, entérinent définitivement les inégalités de destin entre les femmes et les hommes. Dans toute société, l'autonomie économique est intrinsèque à l'émancipation des individus et à l'exercice de leur pouvoir. Et le genre ne doit plus y faire échec. Il nous faut pour cela, brique par brique, corriger les inégalités systémiques qui empêchent la réalisation de la société d'égalité à laquelle, je le crois, nous devons aspirer toutes et tous collectivement. La concrétisation comme l'effectivité des droits économiques des femmes constitue autant d'opportunités pour les individus, les hommes comme les femmes, les entreprises et, vous l'avez dit, notre économie. Les droits économiques, vous l'aurez compris, ont été effectivement au cœur de mon action. Je reviens rapidement peut-être sur la loi du 24 décembre 2021 qui est davantage connue autour de la notion de quota, mais au fond, ce texte, je l'ai souhaité binaire. À la fois un texte d'émancipation et un texte également de protection. Vous le savez, les violences économiques, alors que nous approchons bientôt du 25 novembre, sont une réalité également pour beaucoup de femmes. Depuis la loi du 24 décembre 2021, il y a donc maintenant le versement obligatoire des salaires et des prestations sociales sur un compte personnel afin d'éviter tout type de confiscation de revenus. Nous avons également assoupli largement la notion de droit au compte, notamment pour celles qui souhaitent fuir évidemment un conjoint violent, mais pas nécessairement. Vous savez qu'aujourd'hui, par exemple, 25% des femmes en France ne disposent pas d'un compte personnel. Et la détention d'un compte commun peut faire obstacle à l'ouverture d'un compte individuel. Raison pour laquelle, dorénavant, à travers ce texte, nous avons fait en sorte que le conjoint ne peut plus faire obstacle à l'ouverture d'un compte individuel. Et nous avons reconnu dans la loi les violences économiques comme étant un sujet d'emprise. Je ne vais pas revenir ici sur les enjeux autour de l'enseignement supérieur. Nous avons imposé des parités dans des jurys. Nous avons fait en sorte qu'il y ait des publications genrées, notamment sur les données d'insertion. Nous avons également favorisé la parité dans l'accréditation des écoles d'ingénieurs. Et puis évidemment, nous avons instauré des quotas, donc sur 2 paliers, des quotas de femmes parmi les instances dirigeantes et parmi également les cadres dirigeants, donc 30% d'ici à 2026, 40% d'ici à 2029, avec, il faut bien dire, un effet levier. Donc cette loi n'est pas, vous l'avez compris, encore opérationnelle, puisque ce sera l'année prochaine. Mais entre 2019 et 2020, au moment où ce texte a été élaboré, et aujourd'hui, nous avons gagné 10 points. Nous sommes aujourd'hui devant les États-Unis en matière de présence des femmes dans les comités de direction. Je rappelle juste un point, encore une fois, de rentabilité. 23,55% de rentabilité opérationnelle pour les 10 entreprises les plus féminisées, contre 11,93% pour les 10 dont les COMEX sont les moins féminisés. Donc il y a ici, bien évidemment, aussi un enjeu de performance économique. Et puis nous avons introduit un dispositif que certains ou certaines peut-être connaissent, qui est celui de l'égale conditionnalité, de s'assurer notamment que les financements d'un opérateur de l'État que vous connaissez sûrement très bien ici, qui est la Banque publique d'investissement, soient conditionnés au respect notamment des obligations en matière d'égalité professionnelle et de s'assurer également que les comités d'investissement s'assurent d'une représentation des femmes au sein de ces comités d'investissement. Et puis parce que l'argent des femmes est aussi bridé, il y a le sujet de la fiscalité. Un système fiscal en France qui manque de transparence et qui ne permet pas aux individus, et en particulier aux femmes, de prendre des décisions sur le long terme et qui leur impose parfois de faire des choix de vie à l'aune de ces enjeux fiscaux. Nombreux sont les dispositifs fiscaux qui empruntent une conception à passer de la famille des individus, je reviens au code napoléonien, empêchent l'autonomie économique et financière des femmes, restreignent leur accès au marché du travail et ainsi grèvent bien évidemment, vous l'aurez compris, la productivité des entreprises comme la croissance du pays. L'impôt, droit fiscal, que vous avez certainement appréhendé ici, au-delà de son caractère technique, engage également des choix de société qui peuvent contribuer à équilibrer les relations économiques entre les femmes et les hommes. La France fait partie des 10 derniers pays de l'OCDE où l'impôt sur le revenu est calculé sur la base du revenu du ménage. Cette doctrine fiscale de conjugalisation de l'impôt empreinte, là encore une fois, d'une conception à passer de la famille et des individus, empêche l'autonomie économique et financière des femmes. Et ce biais fiscal, évidemment, est absolument déterminant. Raison pour laquelle, depuis le mois de septembre, là, depuis un mois, le taux de prélèvement à la source de l'impôt sur le revenu est individualisé par défaut. Et je vous avoue m'être un petit peu battue encore récemment, parce que vous savez, nous sommes en pleine discussion budgétaire, pour faire en sorte que nous aboutissions à une individualisation fiscale complète en France. J'ai perdu. Mais là où j'ai gagné, c'est que le débat a été long et l'équilibre, finalement, je m'attendais à perdre plus difficilement. Vous voyez, bon, j'ai perdu, je suis bonne joueuse, mais plutôt, je suis assez optimiste pour les années à venir. Simone de Beauvoir écrivait que l'indépendance économique est la condition première des droits civiques. Comment partir si l'on n'a pas d'argent? Comment négocier si l'on n'a pas de ressources? Comment rêver si l'on n'a pas de patrimoine? Les violences économiques précèdent évidemment toutes les autres. L'autonomie économique protège avant que la loi n'intervienne dans le cadre de violences. Or aujourd'hui, les femmes sont à l'aube d'une révolution à ne pas manquer, et notre société et notre économie. Les femmes représentent 62% des jeunes diplômés. Elles contribuent à hauteur de 40,7% du PIB français. Elles vont recevoir une part historique du patrimoine mondial et elles sont évidemment indispensables à la croissance future. Renforcer les droits économiques des femmes, c'est leur rendre la propriété, une propriété la plus fondamentale, qui est évidemment de celle d'exercer leur propre vie. Or, c'est précisément ce que refusent ceux qui aujourd'hui aspirent à désarçonner les femmes, empreints de rivalité et de masculinité toxique, voire de contestation, j'insiste sur ce point, de nos états de droit. Or, ils se trompent de combat. Permettez-moi de citer Olaf Palme, qui, à Washington en 1970, tenait un discours dont le titre était « Émanciper l'homme ». Pour permettre aux femmes de s'émanciper du rôle auquel elles sont assignées depuis l'Antiquité, les hommes doivent également s'émanciper. Par conséquent, c'est l'ensemble des êtres humains que nous devons émanciper. Face à la pression de traditions millénaires, nous devons chaque jour faire preuve d'entêtement, de ténacité et de patience pour changer les comportements et mener à terme les réformes qui vont progressivement changer les rôles de chacun. À nous donc, collectivement, chercheurs, puissance privée, puissance publique, de faire en sorte que l'argent des femmes puisse également s'exercer à travers un pouvoir d'exister, un pouvoir de choisir, un pouvoir de créer, un pouvoir de partir, un pouvoir de bâtir. Les droits des femmes les droits économiques des femmes sont, je le crois, à la source de l'ensemble de leurs droits. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la députée, pour cette intervention. Est-ce qu'il y aurait des questions? On a le temps pour quelques questions. Est-ce qu'il y aurait des questions dans la salle?
Merci beaucoup, c'était passionnant. J'ai une question, c'est pas la première fois que j'entends que ça va être historique, cette transmission de patrimoine auprès des femmes. Qu'est-ce qui change? Enfin, je sais qu'il y a la grande transmission, mais pourquoi spécifiquement ça va être un enjeu important pour les femmes par rapport à...
Vous avez compris que les femmes vivent plus longtemps que les hommes. Et c'est déterminant parce que pour la première fois, en fait, dans l'histoire économique, les femmes vont détenir autant de capitaux. Donc des capitaux qui vont leur être transmis parfois, pas toujours. Il y a également des patrimoines également qui vont fructifier parce que les femmes se sont également saisies d'opportunités. Et c'est déterminant parce que, en fait, la problématique majeure, selon moi, c'est de faire en sorte que les femmes, autant que les hommes, soient considérées comme des sujets économiques. À partir du moment où vous êtes considéré comme un sujet économique, et donc pour moi, ça va aussi avec le fait de faire en sorte que les femmes soient considérées comme des sujets fiscaux, vous l'aurez compris, tous les pans de l'organisation économique ne regarderont plus les femmes à l'aune de leur vie familiale. Je vous rappelle encore qu'une grande partie des entrepreneurs, vous en êtes peut-être, qui souhaitent solliciter des fonds, on leur demande encore si leur mari est d'accord. C'est réellement, c'est encore une question qui est régulièrement posée. Donc on a encore cette situation de sujet économique où la promotion des femmes, l'argent des femmes est encore considéré comme un argent d'appoint, un argent de poche parfois même. Et donc insister sur ce pouvoir économique des femmes qui est une réalité, c'est aussi rappeler une réalité sociologique, une réalité économique et faire en sorte que les organisations, et en particulier les entreprises, quelles qu'elles soient, regardent les femmes également différemment. Je vous donne un exemple, par exemple le sujet de la santé. On sait que $1 aujourd'hui investi dans la santé des femmes en rapporte 3. Pourquoi ? Parce que là encore, c'est un sujet qui a été totalement invisibilisé, qu'on a aujourd'hui des entreprises qui ont très bien compris la problématique autour de la santé des femmes et qui, à la fois sur des enjeux vaccinaux, de prévention, de santé, investissent ce sujet. Par ailleurs, investir la santé des femmes, c'est s'assurer qu'elles reprennent leur vie active. Et donc, c'est ainsi de suite un cheminement économique également, au-delà évidemment du confort que ça apporte à ces femmes, de pouvoir considérer ce sujet. Donc, on a l'importance de regarder les femmes comme, encore une fois, des sujets économiques, me semble déterminant. Et j'ai cité ce chiffre parce que je le trouve intéressant à l'aune des problématiques qui se posent parfois.
D'autres questions?
Moi, j'ai une question concernant la dimension européenne de votre politique. Vous avez raconté que vous avez eu des discussions en Allemagne, en Italie, dans le Royaume-Uni. Et qu'est-ce qui sont les points communs qui vont être adressés et qu'est-ce qui sont vos objectifs, si vous pouvez expliquer ça?
Alors, l'Allemagne, pas encore, ce que je peux vous expliquer, mais effectivement, donc si je prends par exemple l'exemple de l'Italie, il y a un sujet en Italie, notamment de transmission du patrimoine et notamment des entreprises. Si on prend l'exemple de l'Allemagne, je crois de mémoire, seulement 12% des entreprises d'aujourd'hui sont transmises à des femmes. Donc on a aussi un sujet de transmission des entreprises et de l'outil de production. Et en Italie, vous savez que le tissu industriel est un tissu de TI, en fait, de petites, de moyennes entreprises industrielles. Et donc il y a un sujet de transmission. Et donc il y a un sujet également d'exercice du pouvoir à l'intérieur de ces entreprises. Donc la loi Copé-Zimmermann, que vous connaissez certainement, a été transposée en Italie, c'est la loi Golfo-Mosca, que vous connaissez peut-être. Et en effet, moi je suis allée plusieurs fois à l'invitation notamment des parlementaires ou également des chercheurs italiens pour regarder comment le texte que moi j'ai porté pouvait être transposé en Italie. Maintenant, il y a des différences majeures, encore une fois liées à la taille des entreprises en particulier. Mais il y a, on en parlait tout à l'heure, l'Espagne aussi, par exemple, qui porte également le sujet des quotas. On sait que c'est un sujet qui anime aussi l'Allemagne actuellement. Et si je me permets de revenir sur le sujet du droit, c'est que vous avez raison, on parle souvent de l'impératif moral, éthique, et d'autre part l'enjeu de la performance économique. Je crois qu'aujourd'hui, il y en a un troisième. Je ne sais pas s'il est supérieur, mais moi, il me semble absolument déterminant, qui est celui de l'enjeu démocratique. Pourquoi ? Parce que les pays qui remettent, en tout cas les pays où il y a une remise en question de l'état de droit, s'attaquent en premier aux droits des femmes. C'est un totem. Et donc s'assurer notamment qu'il y ait une attention portée notamment sur la place des femmes dans l'économie, mais pas seulement, eh bien c'est s'assurer également qu'il y ait un rempart contre d'éventuels régimes qui pourraient s'attaquer aux droits des femmes. Donc, et je crois que c'est un impératif auquel les entreprises d'ailleurs doivent être extrêmement attentifs. Les entreprises d'aujourd'hui sont des diplomates, font de la géopolitique malgré elles. Et donc cet enjeu de diplomatie économique à travers notamment la place des femmes dans leurs organisations me semble déterminant.
Bonsoir. J'ai une question par rapport au congé de naissance qui vient d'être voté. Parce que le congé paternité, pour moi, était une incroyable évolution qui a créé, renforcé le sentiment de paternité chez les papas et permis de réduire l'écart quelque part sur la durée du congé post-naissance. Et là, le congé qui vient d'être voté, si j'ai bien lu, c'est le choix est laissé entre la femme, entre le papa ou la maman pour prendre le congé de naissance, il me semble. Bon, très bien, j'ai mal lu. Parce que si c'était comme ça, pour moi, ça va mécaniquement créer un écart.
Donc le congé de naissance,
donc
je rappelle, le congé de maternité post-naissance, c'est 10 semaines, et c'est donc 4 semaines sur un congé dit de paternité, aujourd'hui 28 jours, donc c'est obligatoire. Le congé de naissance rajoute 2 mois pour les 2 parents qui ne peuvent pas être transférables. Donc il y a 2 mois, imaginons qu'il y ait un papa et une maman dans la famille, de maman par exemple, eh bien la femme qui a accouché aura ces 8 semaines supplémentaires de congé de naissance, en plus de son congé de maternité, et le père peut également prendre 8 semaines lui-même. Mais il n'y a pas de transfert, c'est l'un et l'autre. L'un et l'autre bénéficient de ces 8 semaines. Et en revanche, il n'y a pas de transfert, c'est-à-dire que le père ne peut pas décider de transférer les 8 semaines à la maman.
Oui, mais alors, c'est bien ce que j'avais lu. Moi, je pense que le gros risque, c'est que les femmes prennent les 2 mois supplémentaires ou 8 semaines supplémentaires et que les hommes ne le prennent pas. Et donc, c'est possible. Un écart.
C'est possible.
Pourquoi on n'a pas fait quelque chose où...
Obligatoire.
Obligatoire, s'il y en a un qui prend 2 semaines, l'autre prend 2 semaines.
En fait, quand vous regardez par exemple ce qui se passe en Suède, il n'y a aucun caractère obligatoire au congé de paternité. En Suède, il n'y a pas de congé de paternité, de congé parental, c'est à l'échelle du couple. Et pour que l'ensemble du foyer puisse bénéficier de l'intégralité des jours, Aujourd'hui, d'ailleurs, c'est assez récent, c'est depuis 2018, les pères doivent obligatoirement prendre 3 mois. Mais il n'y a pas d'obligation à ce que les pères prennent ce congé parental. La seule chose, la seule différence, c'est que, en raison de nos finances publiques, clairement, il y a eu un débat, c'est que le premier mois sera indemnisé par l'assurance maladie à hauteur de 70% du salaire, et le deuxième mois à hauteur de 60% du salaire. Donc, en effet, moi, le frein que je vois peut-être qui fera en sorte que les hommes ne prendront peut-être pas l'intégralité de ce congé naissance ou ne le prendront pas, c'est notamment sur les hauts revenus en raison de la perte de revenus. C'est plutôt la difficulté effectivement que je perçois, mais libre également aux organisations de combler ce que l'assurance maladie indemnisera en termes d'IGI. Voilà. Mais il n'y a pas de transfert. On sait que pour que le congé parental soit efficace en matière de résorption de l'égalité femmes-hommes, il y a plusieurs conditions. D'abord, il faut que ce soit long. Donc, il faut que ce soit minimum 16 semaines. Donc là, on n'y est pas parce que 8 semaines plus 4, ça fait 12. Pour changer les habitudes. En fait, le sujet du congé parental, c'est de changer durablement le rapport à la parentalité. De faire en sorte, vous l'avez compris, qu'il n'y ait pas une pénalité de maternité pour les femmes et une prime de paternité pour les hommes. Or, c'est ce qui se passe aujourd'hui. Après le deuxième enfant, les hommes gagnent en moyenne 7% de plus et les femmes, je crois que c'est de l'ordre de 16%. Là, mes chiffres sont donnés, moi, je ne suis peut-être pas certaine. En tout cas, il y a une pénalité de maternité et il y a une prime de paternité pour les hommes. Et c'est ça qu'il faut combler. Et ça, c'est effectivement, il faut que les hommes prennent durablement l'habitude de s'occuper des enfants, d'où l'importance de ces 16 semaines. Il faut ensuite que le congé ne soit pas transférable. Donc là, moi, je vous garantis que ça ne l'est pas. Nous n'avons pas voté de transfert de congé entre les deux parents. Mais après, effectivement, il y a l'indemnisation. Et là, je reconnais que pour des raisons financières, le gouvernement n'a souhaité ne pas aller plus loin. Mais c'est probablement là qu'on aura peut-être davantage de prise du congé de naissance par les mamans et moins par les pères. C'est possible.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la députée. C'était un plaisir de vous accueillir. Un petit souvenir de votre visite à l'ESCP.
Merci beaucoup. Merci à vous.
Merci beaucoup aussi de ma part. Bon, ça marche, oui.
So we heard now your impressive report about what you did in France to help female participation in our economic life and our social life. Before we heard a little bit about our research, and now we turn to the corporate perspective, right? So we would like to listen in our panel discussion to representatives from our sponsoring companies. And there are quite a lot of questions that emerged, and we had to concentrate a little bit on what can we discuss tonight. And I would like first to introduce Tatiana. Tatiana is our Bachelor in Management student, right? And she will moderate this discussion. It was the specific wish of our sponsoring company. So Tatiana, please, would you like to come to the stage? Thank you very much. So, and then as you were sitting, Marion Calcine would be the first panel participant. She is Chief Investment Officer, Infrastructure, and Senior Managing Director at Ardian. Very welcome. And we have Munir Kom, Deputy CEO and Planning Director. Eric Demouy, General Manager and Founder of Group Advisory. And last but not least, we have Natalie Rosinski, Senior Private Banker and Capital Partner of Marion.
Amazing. Thank you so much, and good evening, everyone. So it's a real pleasure to be moderating this discussion today on women, money, and power. So today we'll be exploring how influence, leadership, and diversity are reshaping finance. And we'll be hearing these diverse perspectives from excellent professionals. So if we dive straight in and begin with leadership. So Natalie and Munir, you each work in spaces where strong representation and influence truly matter. What have you found to be the most effective ways to help more women reach senior roles in finance?
Should I start? So thank you very much for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here. I think the question about leadership is really a question of ambition, organization, and also anticipation. So I'll be more clear. And I think what we really need to do in all companies is to have a clear look at what we call the key talent, or talent in general, whether they are men or women. But we really need to identify this pool of talent. And then what we need to do is, in general, to identify what I call the key position, leadership position, key critical position. And then for each single woman, I'm a truly believer that the companies, whether it's the manager or the HR department, need to have each year a clear conversation of what the expectations are. Obviously, it's on merit when I talk about talented women, but need to make sure that the promotion criteria are very clear. The leadership development program also is in place to be able to put those women from where they are today and reach those positions. But I think there really needs to be a plan, because without any plan, it's just general discussion that manager will have with their employee. And then once you have this plan, so again, it includes development leadership program. You also need to have, to help you go ahead, have a mentor and go behind the mentorship. I always say a mentor is good, but what's really helpful is a sponsor who will be a true advocate and help you grow along the time. And each year, this program should be reviewed and help to reach the goal of being one day in a critical position or in a leadership position.
Amazing, thank you. I think that point on critical positions was excellent. And Munir, how would that look like in your organization?
Look, I think it starts with role model, and especially at Vauban, where it's not appearing today, but it's a female-led company, so I'm apologizing for replacing Genola, who's traveling far away, but I think role modeling is key. You can see that with Marion, and Ardian is very strong, but having, when it's what you were saying earlier, when someone enters into the room, you need to see people that looks like you a little bit. If you feel a minority as soon as you enter anywhere, you will never feel comfortable and you're not sending the right signal. At Vauban, we have 40% of women, and it's across functions, so it's not parity. We're not saying we're the best or we're there yet, but it's a strong figure already. And it's across positions, so it's not only about juniors or support function, it's across directors, partners, across functions. So I think that's the primary role modeling is important. And I think also, when Viola told me, I can't come, please go for me. I initially told her, well, look, we have plenty of women that are very well placed at Vauban, they can go. And she told me, and she was pretty right, to say, well, actually, it's also your mission to show that it's important, gender parity. So I'm very happy to do so. I think it's then making life at work, and also it appeared in your study, life at work seem possible and making everything possible, ranging from all the benefit we provide to make sure that that you can achieve leadership position, and not feeling being biased in the process, ranging from, as you were saying, the criteria for promotion, the criteria for being evaluated, but also having the parental leave. So we have extended it for women, but we have also extended it the paternity leave, which is at above 10 weeks at Vauban. So and that created a huge cultural shift, and much more than initially than we thought initially. And not only because now we're having tons of babies at Vauban, but on top of that, what we're saying is that it changes the way people are used to organize agenda. It's a very silly practical stuff, but you know, having the partner or the director organizing all meetings at 6 p.m. And women saying, well, I have to go home, I have to take care. That changed totally. The other day I had a younger lady telling me it's really annoying because the partner is going back every time at 6 to take care of the kids, and we have to do the call at 8. So I have the reverse problem now in management. But it's important. It's showing that you can get things organized differently, and that it's the same for everyone. And yeah, I think that's a few good examples.
Well, thank you both. I think these were. Is everything? Okay, well, the great points were made on visibility and culture, which ties in perfectly to our next challenge, which is how to build and sustain credibility in environments where women are still underrepresented. So, Marion and Eric, both of you work in sectors that are historically seen as male-dominated, so infrastructure and corporate advisory. So what strategies have helped you, or women that you have worked with, build credibility, influence, and trust in those spaces?
First of all, thank you for having me here. It's a great pleasure and honor to be with you today. It's true that working in infrastructure and I started 20 years ago, I was very often the only woman in the room. I still am sometimes, and it feels uncomfortable. As Munir said, it's better to enter a room and see someone that looks like you. And I have plenty of anecdotes of people asking me coffee because they thought I was the assistant, and they were very surprised when I was coming and sitting in the middle of the room because I was the one responsible for the project. So it feels uncomfortable, but at the same time, it also positions you differently. And so I think that it, in many cases, is an asset rather than a liability. What helped me, first of all, is at the beginning of my career, and that's a non-gender related advice, is to accept everything. I never said no. I showed interest always, and I tried to stay very open to new projects and new opportunities. And I think that I was on the invisible side always, and I'm still, and I like it. I tried to build trust, credibility, leadership on reliability. And so I'm always perceived as technical, reliable. I read documents. Sometimes men do not read documents. So they come to meetings, they have not read the documents, and they just rely on their simple self-confidence to make a decision. And so that's the way I build the credibility in my team and beyond my team. And then the second aspect is that I found my sponsor, and I relate to what Nathalie says. You don't need really mentors, you need sponsors, those who bring you to the next level, give you responsibilities, and put you forward in meetings, in occasions, ask you to take over responsibilities that you would not have imagined for yourself. And so I was pushed into that by my boss. He notably put me as observer at the executive committee of Ardian France. That was 8 years ago. And so I read the documents. I always tried to be reliable and bring something during the meetings, so that when a seat was free 2 years ago, I was here. And so he said, now she can become part of the executive committee. And I think that this is this kind of people that you need to identify in organization. As employees, you can identify good managers, and that's what makes you stay and progress in organizations.
Amazing, thank you. I think the point of building trust and credibility through variability is very relevant today. So thank you. And Eric, what's your standpoint on this?
Thank you. I'm really pleased to be there again. I was there 1 month ago for different topics, but very pleased to support, in fact, the chairwoman in finance. I was partly at the initiative, so since the creation of 8, we strongly believe that diversity is an asset for the company. At the same time, I don't believe that there's only one solution, in fact, to improve, in fact, the balance between the gender balance. Clearly, there's many aspects which is linked to what is supported by the leadership team. First, that's first point, to have the support of president, ExCom members, etc. So that's clearly an important point. Clearly, you need also, as mentioned by Marion, you need a strong role model, so either internally or externally. So at 8 Advisory, we invite sometimes people outside just to demonstrate that there's other career paths, and it helps probably to have this kind of role model, but it could be internal as well. Sponsorship is clearly one aspect which helps also to grow in an organization and to be recognized. Wage equality, at 8 Advisory we have a score of 99%, so clearly the best score in the industry, which also demonstrate our focus on the fact that people, women and men, should be compensated equally. We are in a people business, so you every day, every hours, you try to sell your skills to your client. So that's the way it works, and internally it has some impact on the way we work also, which means that sometimes you need also to sell yourself internally. So don't be shy. Sometimes there's a kind of shyness probably in the way to present, in fact, your own quality, your asset. You need to sell yourself, specifically in a historically male-dominated environment. And probably we also need to be a little bit more aggressive on the way we recruit people externally, or the way we promote people. We know that up to 30%, in fact, women does not manage their career without considering that there will be a male view on their career. So up to 30%, you have a behavior which is abnormal, I would say, and above 30%, it starts to change. So which means that all companies should really push to achieve this level. In the industry, historically, in the private equity industry, it was well below 20-25%. There have been a big push, in fact, to increase the proportion of women out of the PE professional. So now it's in 10 years it has totally changed. They are up to 35%, and the target is to be at 40% in 2 years' time. So that's a nice target, and it will probably completely switch the way to organize also the activity. That's the same in our industry, in the consulting business. So I'm in a startup which was successful. We are now 1,000 people. We are welcoming women. However, we still have 25% of women inside 8. Clearly, we want to increase, but we don't have any as much CV as we would like. It's probably 25% as well. So you are all welcome to candidate at 8 Advisory for sure.
Amazing. Thank you very much for your very insightful answers. So now we've spoken about personal influence and leadership. So let's now zoom out to the more institutional level, where we can see where board and investment decisions can really reflect this diversity. So Natalie and Marion, when gender diversity improves at senior or investment levels, do you notice differences in decision making? Risk appetite, long-term focus, or even ESG considerations? And how does diversity influence value creation in your organizations?
So I'll speak on both sides. So I'm a banker and capital partner at Lombardier, and I'm also a director on a listed company, a French company named Lectra. And by the way, I've been there for 9 years, and I was asked to be the lead director this year. And even at my age, earlier this year, when the board asked me to be the lead director, I still thought, can I do it? So you can see at any age, you can still have doubt and wondering whether you can do the job. Apparently, so far it's fine. So we'll see. So on board decision, I think women tend to be, in general, so a very good listener. And in general also, we don't want to make the smartest point in a board. The most important thing for us is to come to the right decision. So we want the right outcome. And I'm sorry, men, but it's in general. But sometimes in board, and you can have some conflicts, or sometimes we're talking about very big acquisition, and it's very important. Men sometimes can make points just to show a very good, important point, but will not look at the inclusive decision process within the board. And I think women are really good at that. And I've been in other non-listed boards where I can see this process. So I would say women tend to are better in inclusive decision on general. And maybe, I don't know if it's a question of being more humble, but we look at a different perspective. And your question on investment decision and risk-taking, what I see in finance as a banker, and I can see this, and we have Pascal Sévy, who is our commercial director here, and I can really see those qualities with her, is that women tend in finance to be very good listener. Maybe we're more patient, but we can spend hours on first understanding the objective of clients and be very patient. And then I think on average we have long-term horizon, and we can look at long-term investment process compared to some men. So in general, again, I'm saying it's in general because we have excellent male banker, but we are, I think, a complex group with different qualities, and women are really looking at a long-term horizon. I hope men... Now that I've said this.
No, I fully agree with what you said. I think that Madame la députée commented on the fact that risk aversion should not be something which is gender related. And in reality, I was going to say the same. I read the same study by McKinsey, which says that companies with diversity, gender diversity, have 25% outperformance versus the others, and that's notably linked, and they say it in the study, to the fact that women are more conscious of risk and more concerned, well, or at least focused on long-term sustainable growth. And so this exactly the same 2 points that you mentioned. We should not do generalities. First of all, I think that diversity in general, not only gender diversity, is something that brings something in any kind of decision forum, including boards, including investment committees, but everywhere in life. When it comes to board decisions or investment committees, because I don't want this to sound cliché, I will just talk about my own experience, and it's true that when I see myself, I'm more risk adverse than the men in my team or in my company. I am very much focused on sustainability, ESG topics, which is not necessarily the case of all the men in the organization. I was the one pushing for responsible travel policy at the level of Ardian, like not taking planes for anything. And I think this sensitivity is something that is a bit female, a characteristic which you can see more with women. I sit on a board in Iceland. Iceland is a country where gender equality is of the utmost importance. And they have quotas for managers, for board representation. And this is the only board in which there are real discussions, like sometimes in boards you see a discussion between the CEO and the chairman. And this is how the board, because most of the discussions have taken place before, and so it's a bilateral discussion in front of 15 people. In this board, we have a lot of managers who are females, we have a lot of board members who are females, we are basically at parity, and there are discussions where everyone brings and can open up and bring something to the debate. I think this is what diversity provides as well, the openness of discussion and which is a way to get to better decisions.
Thank you. I found it really interesting how you were both able to link risk, diversity, and long-term strategy together. Of course, well, progress brings its own set of challenges. So even as diversity improves, invisible norms and other subtle pushbacks can persist. So Munir and Eric, you both lead large teams in evolving sectors. So even as organizations push and start to implement diversity and inclusion policies, progress can still be slowed by subtle forms of resistance. So what are persistent, invisible norms that still slow progress despite the implementation of these policies? And how has your organization responded to DEI backlash that is especially promoted by Donald Trump's administration?
Thank you. Maybe on the first point, and I will piggyback on the previous question. I think the bias on risk taking, as Madame la Députée said, is less on gender than on it's a cultural bias that has been created on gender, but it's a cultural bias. And I think if you take the opposite way, you see that the key driver is cultural difference. That cultural difference, I believe, and we believe at Vauban, is a key driver of performance and risk management. And so you want diversity at the gender level, but more broadly actually at the cultural level. Because it's by getting a different opinion that you get better decisions. It's by confronting ideas that you get better ideas. And that you can generate and the capacity to build up consensus. And so that's why I said 40% of women, but we also have 15 nationalities. And that's because when we hire people with financial background. We have bankers, but we don't have an army of bankers. We don't have an army of clones. I personally hate that, armies of clones. When you get in somewhere and you see 50 people thinking the same, having the same background, doing the same stuff, they will do mistakes, and they will repeat mistakes. What we have at Vauban is people coming from construction, industrial background, people coming with banking background, with legal background, with very different type of backgrounds and cultures. And so we have lively debate. And I think to the invisible norms, I think you can have a lot of diversity, you can have very good programs, you can have all the setup in place and not being successful because you lack some of the obvious things that make things work, which are typical management processes. So being less vertical, we're very horizontal, if I may say so, at Vauban. And in decision-making process can be agile, can be swift. We tolerate lively IC discussion. We tolerate the fact that people disagree. I think disagreements and acceptance of disagreements is something that is very important in today's society. It's very important in societies that are very divided. Accepting different ideas is quite important. It's an invisible norm that helps going through the backlash period. And if we go, and that's the transition to the backlash period and what we're saying, yes, there is a very strong backlash on D&I, and you can see that when you discuss with people just everywhere in the world, and especially in some part of the world. At Vauban, we have strong convictions, and we keep them. So we've put stuff in place. We proud ourselves of diversity, and we keep on having those. And we keep on defending those. And the backlash is not only on D&I, it's also on sustainability, it's on a lot of matters, which we believe are not political, but actually rather convictions for progress. So we're keeping on those. If you go practically in our line of work, which is investing, private equity, managing businesses, I think there are a lot of implications because To give you an example, we acquired a business from Ardian actually a few years ago, car parking business, Indigo, and a great business, great management team, very strong. When I came in the first time at the board, I entered at the board, I spent the board meeting, the audit committee, the remuneration committee, very lengthy, everything. The governance was excellent because Ardian did a great job. So the governance setup was, no, it's true. Huh? I've not seen that on all companies, so the governance setup was excellent. But the fact is that I spent like 12 hours in a row in meetings, and not a single moment the CEO of the company mentioned anything about either sustainability, gender parity, and all of that. So when I came in with a full setup saying, now I need that and that and that, when I came to gender parity, for example, I said, I'm surprising because I've seen all your executive committee, I've seen everything, I don't see any woman at all. He answered me initially, well, do you think women want to work in the car parks? I told him, look, I'm not asking you to have women guarding the car parking at night. I want women at the board level or at executive committee level. And he said, well, but they don't want to come. And he said, everything that we're doing here, that you're doing with the chair, that it starts from the beginning. It starts by giving people entry. And so we're doing in finance, it's hard, but there are other sectors where it's even harder. And the best way to fight that backlash is to be very strict and very consistent in our policy. We have incredible levers in our line of work. With 10 billion of capital, 10 billion of equity, we're investing into assets. We can impact, we're only, 80 people, 90 people at Vauban, but the number of employees of our portfolio companies, there are 10,000, 20,000. So you can have a very strong impact by implementing measures. And old-fashioned PE type of structures where, let's say, greed is the only engine. The best way, we found a very efficient way at Indigo. It was a top-notch, it's still a top-notch management. So when you set objectives and when you align objectives with financial incentives, you get results. So we got results on all of those because we made sure we're aligned on the achievement of those objectives.
Amazing. Thank you very much for the very insightful answer. We'd like to hear from Eric.
Yeah, probably on the Trump backlash. I would only say that we are a European company compared to our competitors. We are partly located in the US. We are regulated by the European regulation, and so therefore we consider that there should be no impact on the way we manage women and men internally. So that's why you are again very welcome. For sure. What is important is to maintain, in fact, your efforts in terms of D&I. So we did it since the beginning, but we have continued to reinforce despite the new mood on this aspect, and we'll continue to do so. I would be probably much more positive on the fact that there's still a lot of progress to be made, but there's still also a lot of progress which has been made. I recently mentioned the evolution of the number of women in the PE industry that clearly demonstrate the appetite for female. There's a new study which has been published also last week, I think, which demonstrate that women are promoted at board level 2 years before the men, on average, so that go in the right trend. But at the same time, it's mentioned that they are leaving their position also a little bit earlier, which means that they were probably not fully trained or fully prepared. So you need also to invest time to really build your career and to develop your own skill to be able, in fact, to take over a position with a lot of responsibility. But clearly, it goes again in the right direction. We always speak about plafond verre sometimes, and clearly we need to help all women to be promoted, to be recruited, and to feel comfortable with this new position. That's the responsibility probably of the partners at 8 Advisory. I have 4 partners in the room, so I'm sure I will have the full support. But clearly, you need to help women to be convinced that if they are selected as a new member of the firm, or if you promote somebody, they should be comfortable with that and not question their own capabilities if they are there. They just deserve it.
100%. Thank you very much for your answer. I think this ties in perfectly with the final part of our discussion, which is mainly to how to balance ambition, well-being, and personal development whilst building a career in finance. So before we start the Q&A section, I would like to ask the panel, each in one sentence, what advice would you give to ESCP students that are pursuing a career in finance? What is one words of wisdom, essentially? One sentence. If you want to start this one.
For me, it's stick to your values. They are your backbone. And so whether you choose finance, as Monia said, we employ thousands of people. So you are probably much more impactful in finance than you are in an association, in marketing, in luxury, in any other business that you can imagine. And so you have a responsibility. So stick to your values, and what is important for you is important for the society, and that's very important. That should be a driver in your career.
I 100% concur with what Marion said. So adding something different, personal advice would be to dare. I think very often people shy away or don't dare to dare to present, dare to go forward. And it's important, especially in the finance world, where, as we said, it's an industry that still remains very. It has progressed a lot. I fully agree. Compared to when I started 20 years ago, and I see where we are today, there is a huge difference. But still, some of our peers, not to name them, looks like still 1990s private equity firms full of, 50 years old white male that are pre-Me Too. And all of you here, you would never want to go and apply for an internship there. That's clear. But there are a lot of others that are completely different and that are daring to make a change because they're sticking to conviction. And I think it relies on people. So you should dare to show, dare to come, dare to say that you can change something by working in finance with strong convictions.
Probably same comment, just try, and you will see that you will have a lot of fun also in the finance business, and specifically at 8 again. Thank you.
I would start maybe a bit differently, and like Marion said at the start, first you need to deserve it, so you need to work hard, be an expert. People need to think about you and say, she will do the job and she will be very good at it. So it's first about getting this merit, and then I fully agree, it's about daring, asking, never giving up, be very resilient and ask again. But once you are in this, what I call the merit pool, you need to just ask, and I'm sure everybody can get it if you're in the right company, and most of the company today can organize this.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much for all your insightful answers. It's been amazing to hear how the different perspectives on leadership, inclusion, and diversity today. Before we wrap up, I'd love to open up the floor to the audience to ask any questions you may have to the panelists, and feel free, obviously, to direct it to any panelist in particular.
Firstly, thank you so much for all your advice and your insights. My question is actually for all of you, whoever wants to answer, because it's a general with respect to the finance domain. How important do you think is it to apply in finance sector if you want to focus more on the soft skills part of things and not go only on the technical side of things? What I mean is, are there career opportunities in the finance domain for people who want to focus on, for example, investor relations, ESG, and how important are technical skills in that domain then? Like, how do you evaluate technical or soft skills? What would you give priority?
I can start. you do not need to necessarily to have technical skills in finance. It depends which job you choose. If you are a salesperson, you need to know how to sell products, right? And you need to understand them broadly and what is your client needs. You need to listen to your clients as well, but you don't necessarily need to be a mathematician. So there is room that the skill set that is required for finance is very broad. There is no. There are lawyers. There are commercial people. There are real technicians, but. And there are people who studied something and they ended up doing something else, right? So it's I would say it's a quite open domain. If you think in the US, there are many people who studied something, then they do an MBA, and in the end, what they learn in the MBA is basically what you learn in the first years of career in Europe, where you do a lot more of internships and this kind of thing. So, in my view, yes, there is room for non-technical people as well.
Maybe I will answer on the asset management and private banking side. Obviously you need to be have the 101 financial economics course and understand it. But it's also about macroeconomics. It's not only about math or pure technical, obviously. I have a PhD in finance, but I can tell you I completely forgot most of it. But it's more about understanding the overall perspective in finance, in macro, and again, knowing how to develop a relationship with the client, understand the need, and all these soft skills that are at least as important than pure technical skills.
Sorry, if I may just add something, sorry.
No.
And just to give something, a slightly different shed of light, because I think it's important to have a different opinion. I think it's always important to be technical. And you cannot be in a job without being technical. But technical is not necessarily financial modeling, but in every line of job, you're very technical. So if you're an investor relations, you're good at selling, but you know the product, you're in details, you're working. So soft skills are, and the basic, and especially at the start of a career, people will expect from you to be at the top notch on the technical matters. And then as you grow in careers, people will ask more and more about the soft skills. And generally what I tell people, but more when they come closer to the 30s and getting at the next level, I say, no, you're the best technically speaking, that's very good in your line of work, whatever it is. It can be sales, it can be marketing, it can be financial modeling, it can be, but you need to be also very good at soft skills. You need to be good at generating network, at leadership, at a lot of different things that are more related to soft skills. Where at the start, and whether it's because you're doing financial modeling or you're preparing a PowerPoint presentation or you're doing everything, that will remain, I'm sorry, I think very technical. But that's it.
No, my technical side, I meant like mathematics. And,
okay, no, mathematics is, I
mean, in general, the technical financial.
That's fine. I always say I don't know how to count. I'm known to be mistaken in my calculation very often, and that doesn't prevent me from doing my job. So.
Thank you.
In transaction support, you will always start by developing technical skills before, but then after, progressively, in fact, you will increase your other skills, such as soft skills. After 2 or 3 years, you start to manage teams, and then you need to develop also the capacity, such as selling capacity or management capacity. And you can be promoted partner after 10 years, which is relatively short in our industry.
So I think we've got another question over there.
First, thanks for being here tonight. It was really, really interesting. I have a question for the 4 of you about sponsorship. I've attended numerous networking events, and they always mentioned mentorship. So I would like to know more about what is the difference between a mentor and sponsor, and how you secure a sponsor and how you grow a relationship with him or her.
I can start if you want. A mentor is someone who is in your company but is not, by definition, in the same department or working closely with you. Is someone who can give a higher perspective and explain you how the firm works and go through the different process and guide you. A sponsor is someone who knows perfectly what you do, who have gone with you through the good and the difficult time, and who will really help you through the promotion process, or who will identify some key position within the sector and help you reach those. So it's really someone, when you go to a promotion committee or you go to an evolution strategic, I would say, committee, this person will say, she deserves this with, and he will have 20 notes and explain why you deserve it and why you should get it. So it's really, would you say, a truly advocate of your career.
No, probably sponsorship is not only a matter of men or women. In fact, it's for everyone. New career, you need to develop your network, and you need to find some sponsor to be able to recognize what you are able to do and who will push for you. So it's for everyone, in fact.
Okay, well, thank you very much for all the great questions. And I'd like to say a final thank you to all of you, the panel. Thank you for the engaging debate. It's been a pleasure to moderate today. So if you can join me in giving one last round of applause to Marion.
Merci.
Sorry, if you can bear with us for just a few more minutes, we have 2 more things to share before we move to the cocktail.
Yeah, thank you very much, Almudena. So, if you could have a seat for another, let's say, 5-6 minutes, we try to be quick. So, we would like to tell you that we have more than 20 students who wrote their thesis with us on women in finance topics. And of course, we assessed all of them and we had a best of, and we sent them to our sponsoring companies. And we have a very clear winner, and the winner is again a bachelor in management student, right? So we have bachelor and master students, again a bachelor in management student, Tara Lemke. All of the 3 cannot be here today, but we wanted to show you that there is extensive work done. The executive summaries are on our webpage, so if you're interested in knowing more about the results, please read them. So just to give you an impression, Tara Lemke, she worked on the organization and the individual side of female leaders, so she did a lot of interviews. This finalist, the number 2, and we have 2 number 2s, right? Antonella Carriera, she talked about, or talked with early and mid-career persons, and then Maya Spies, she was working on what do we know from theory and what do we know in the corporate world about female leadership. So although they are all traveling, and I think this is part of the life path of our students, all the 3 of them are traveling. They are not here in Paris, but I think they deserve an applause and accent. So, and And last point, as I said at the beginning, we are currently matching our mentors and mentees, and we have so many mentees who are interested in getting mentoring, and we need like 30 more mentors. So we have a QR code. If you can help us, and this will be outside also again, so if you can help us in being a mentor for our students, this would be great. So just as a reminder, and now we would like to invite you to the networking part, to the cocktail, and our students have submitted their CVs, and of course we send them to the companies, and you will see outside everything is prepared. So please, our students, go to those companies you're most interested in first, talk to them, network. And for all the rest of you, please also enjoy the cocktail and the networking event. And with that, Almudena and I would like to thank you very much for being here today, for discussing with us, and for giving all your input. Thank you. Thank you very much.